talking about the world of SMEs. So Nick Lane, in his presentation, when he opened the event with the analyst presentation side of things, mentioned just 5% of listed companies use business messaging today. And that's 5% of 306 million. I don't think he had the 306 million in this time around, but I remember from a previous presentation, it's over 300 million listed companies. So those are the listed ones. Those are the ones you'll find on a record somewhere at a company's house. So for example, in the UK, the registry of companies is called Companies House. So that's how Mobile Squared got those figures. They went around the world, got those figures from those official companies, from those official business registries, came up with the figure of 306 million. But if you think about how many other businesses there are, that figure has to be 500 million, because there are going to be so many businesses out there with probably just one or two people involved. So this topic is super important. I'm joined today on stage by two people. Carlos Villanueva, who's the Chief Revenue Officer of Enabled. You remember Carlos from his appearance on the jury yesterday, if you were here. The double win. You're a double winner. Yeah. Congratulations.
Sorry, Nick.
So yeah, if you take a seat over there. I'm standing in the wrong place. Next up. And Scott Taylor. Now, Scott Taylor is from a company called FICO. Those of you here physically at the event in Amsterdam, probably, before having met Scott and having talked to him, might never have heard of the company he actually works for. But the company he works for, we'll be hearing more from Scott, is actually rather large. And in some parts of the world, in the US in particular, practically every single person on the street there knows the company Scott works for. So, Scott, very warm welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
No problem. Come on up. And joining us also online, if we bring up the online participants, they're all there. Fantastic. So, hello. So, we've got Anurag Aggarwal from Tanla Platforms, VP of Partnerships. Hi, Anurag. We've got David DCB, but that's David Creasey-Benjamin from Cisco, and Yasser Waheed from Kaleyra. So I'll let all of you folks introduce yourselves. Carlos is ready with the mic right there.
They told me you have to.
Well, there we go. So you're ready, so let's go for it. Introduce yourself and what you do, what your company does exactly, and the role you play in what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Carlos. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at Enabled. So my main task is basically lead the business development and marketing activities at Enabled, mostly in EMEA. So what Enabled does, so we are basically a technology enabler. So we build and develop technology solutions for new software as a service communication functionalities or solutions. So we work with platforms, CPaaS platforms, SMS platforms, and the wholesale carriers. Basically, our role in the industry is to facilitate the access to technology. We build functionalities that can, let's say, be injected in different platforms. And the main purpose, let's say, is to enhance the current solutions they have in industry, targeting enterprise, SMEs, or other service providers.
Okay, so it's important. Your personal background is important as well. Where did you come from before? What did you do?
So I'm coming from BIX, so a wholesale carrier. I'm based in Brussels, and I stayed in Brussels. So my background is basically cloud communications and IoT. I used to be the global manager for cloud communications and IoT when it comes to channel partners. So, I got a lot of involvement in different discussions of where the industry should go into cloud communications. Perfect. And how to combine it with IoT.
Perfect. Now, that word IoT has not been mentioned, I don't think, at all, until now. And in our last panel discussion looking at commercial models, I will be talking about IoT, because IoT actually has a really big influence. Scott, you probably want to talk about it as well. Has a really big influence on commercial models in business messaging. So, thank you very much. Next up, Scott, would you like to introduce yourself, your background, who FICO is, and what I was alluding to, and your...
Sure. Yeah, I'll give it my best go. So, yeah, so I'm Scott Taylor. So I'm a fraud protection and compliance consultant across Europe, Middle East, and Africa for a company called FICO. As I said before, if you're from the US, I'm quite sure you have heard of FICO. Our business was 1957, it was founded. FICO stands for Fair Exit Corporation. the two founders. That's the kind of name terminology, but the business is split into two parts of the business. The very sort of well-known and successful FICO score in America, and if you're not familiar with that, and if you're from UK, it's basically a credit bureau. It gives a score for lending purposes, because Bill Isaac and Fair Isaacs were analytical, mathematical type background. We are a global software analytics firm by nature. So the business is a FICO score, but on the other side, we've got a very large software business, and that's the area that I work in. As I said, we are a global business. We provide platforms to some of the largest banks in the world, actually. And the platform, it can run on-premise or in the cloud, but we deal with the platform from applications, originations, to optimization, as in what's the next best offer for the client. Maybe it's even to do with mortgage pricing. So it's quite a full range end-to-end. But where I associate with MEF is another part, a large part of the business, is the FICO CCS, the Customer Communications Services, because we provide end-to-end solutions for all different verticals, but mainly large banks. We host the top 5 banks in the UK. Our communication services is a cloud-based omni-channel solution. We operate out about 40 different countries globally. We do about 3 million contacts per day. I would say in the main, it's mainly SMS, automated voice. We are doing a lot of expansion in LAC just now through WhatsApp. We've just launched WhatsApp in some of the largest banks in Brazil, and we're potentially moving into South Africa. So where I work with James is, as I say, mainly in the omni-channel solutions. It's really important. I liked the last session because, interestingly enough, my background is not eco-communications. My background is fraud prevention. I used to be the head of the fraud investigations for a large bank in the UK called NatWest. I used to use CCS, hence I can talk about it and evangelize about it. But importantly, I'm now moving into a world of interaction SMSs, discussional SMSs, and talk about opportunities. There's a great opportunity to digitalize a lot of the fraud prevention processes with the large banks. And one of the issues is the commercial models. Yeah. So glad to be here.
It feeds into the next session perfectly. I just wanted everyone to be aware of what FICO is doing, and really glad to have you as a MEF member. Thank you for joining. I'm going to tap into that. Next up, Anurag over in India. Pleasure to have you with us. Introduce yourself, what you do, and who Tanla is. You were mentioned earlier on today as well, your company, in a previous session.
Oh, I'd love to know about the mention. Thanks a lot, James. Hi, everyone. Nice to connect with you all again. I was here yesterday also, and it is, I must compliment MEF. It's a fantastically organized hybrid event. It seems quite smoothly interspersed between the online and the physical activities, and that's pretty good. My name is Anurag Aggarwal. I'm based in New Delhi in India. I take care of partnerships and alliances in a company called Tanla Platforms. It's over 20 years old, primarily been in the CPaaS space. We focus on all aspects of CPaaS, both in terms of platform development and deployment, and also aggregation. So, and a lot of enterprise solutions. One of the primary projects that I'm dealing with at the moment is that we are pioneers in the industry globally in launching a blockchain-enabled and end-to-end encrypted CPaaS platform. It goes by the name of Wisely, and we built that in collaboration with Microsoft. And my role within the organization is to bring a number of partners on board this platform. When I say partners, it could be mobile operators and carriers, it could be other CPaaS players, it could be other vendors of sorts. So that's what I'm doing here, and look forward to today's session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anurag. Next up, over to you, David from Cisco.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, depending where you all are. I will echo Anurag and say thank you very much for laying on the hybrid event and enabling those of us who weren't able to be with you to still take part. So I'm David Creasey-Benjamin, DCB, and I work for Cisco. You probably have all heard of Cisco. We pretty much do anything if it's got the words IT in front of it, or networking. My role in particular, though, I work in the future messaging team. So we look after talking to our customers about the channels they should be using, talking to existing and new players about why messaging is important, why they should be using it, and then using our software to enable conversations, because that's what all of this is about, is enabling businesses to have conversations with their customers, where they want, when they want, how they want. And we have a number of options and solutions to do that. So looking forward to talking to you all today about how you get the next 100 million businesses onto it, because they should all be using it.
Exactly, thank you. And I'd like to introduce you to Yasser Waheed from Kaleyra. Yasser, hi.
Hi, James. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Hello, everybody. This is a fantastic event. It's bringing everybody together and actually speaking about things that we're all passionate about. But, I think events of this kind are the only way for us to come together and learn more about people like Scott at FICO, people like David at Cisco, who are evangelizing the future of messaging, and Anurag as well with the blockchain. So it's not just SMS as it used to be; it's SMS as it's going into the future. The company I work for is Kaleyra. We were established in 1999 as Ubiquity Italy. Since that time, we've been growing. There's been multiple entities acquired. So we are a full-on CPaaS working globally, API-based. So we are smack in the middle of all enterprises, whether it be banks, whether it be retailers. We see how the trends are. We see what they need. We see, meaning the SMEs. So this is an interesting session where we're going to try to explore and hopefully take some questions and see what everybody thinks.
Fantastic. So Kaleyra, as well, for everyone's information, has an offshoot called the TCR, the Campaign Registry, and that is for ultimately securing messaging campaigns over in the US, and that program is going to be expanded internationally as well. So you detect a theme going on with all the speakers here. All of them are very experienced in the world of business messaging, or they work with enterprises, have worked with enterprises, or have worked directly for enterprises. So most of the people here have actually have been generally speaking with the larger enterprises, but the solutions, if you combine what we've got from Cisco, you combine what we've got from Tanla platforms and its offshoot, Carix, you've got Kaleyra, you've got enabled, what you're doing as a CPaaS enabler, and you've got everything you offer all together. That is a fantastic array of technology out there. Now the question is, how do we make those solutions available to smaller companies out there? I'd like just to start off. I'll start off with our online participants this time around. Anurag from Tanla Platforms. How are we doing at really, truly getting this message across? We talk about it so much at events like this, that business messaging is for everyone. But how do you think? Rate it from 1 to 10, please. 1 is terrible, 10 is perfect. Every single company in the world is using business messaging today. How are we doing collectively as an industry in this room and online at getting the message out there, what business messaging is, and more importantly, practically speaking, how businesses can actually get hooked up to send content out? 1 to 10, and why?
So, James, I would say we are actually 9.5. I think the 0.5, yeah, I truly believe that, especially if you look at the pandemic in the last 2 years, I think this is one industry which has really accelerated and taken up the challenge of ensuring communication reaches each and every one of us across all industries and across all channels. So if you ask me, as compared to 2019, the developments which happened in 2020 and 21 were very significant in accelerating enterprise communication to the end user. If you look at a country near you, the UK government, for example, of course, there were issues of spam and fraud, which we also heard, but there was so much mass communication, especially related to health, which was going out to the UK citizens, which we heard about all across the globe. Similarly, in India, which is the largest economies in the world, there has been such a tremendous adoption of, especially the SMS channel in the last couple of quarters, I'll say. So in my view, I feel there's a lot that we're doing. The 0.5 which I'm deducting is only on account of that there is always room for improvement. If you ask me about the topic that how to bring the next 100 million on board, I per se, prima facie, I'm a little surprised because maybe it could be a blind spot, but I actually thought to a large extent, many enterprises today, or almost all enterprises today, are aware of the ubiquity of the SMS channel to start with. If I'm an individual and an SME entrepreneur, chances are I have been touched by an agency SMS at some point of time, and hence I'm aware about this channel and other similar channels. So I'd say it's a bit surprising if there is lack of awareness. Nevertheless, I do feel that yes, there are some measures which can be taken to further improve on our current reach. Yes, a lot of the SMS today, a lot of bulk SMS today is more either focused towards large enterprises like banks, I agree, or there, especially if you take the example of Twilio, the likes of Twilio are very razor sharp focused on the developer community of how to bring in the SMS APIs and other communication APIs into the various apps which developers are developing. So yes, there is this sort of a belly in the middle where there are a huge number of SMEs which may or may not be using channels. I think the debate or the discussion further, we can talk more about it. But yes, I do feel that there are some avenues, whether it's around bringing more, enabling SMEs better through the likes of conversational AI or marketing automation. These could be some tools which can help SMEs to further have very tailor-made solutions which can be incorporated within their existing systems and technologies, and further help in growing all the various CPaaS channels across the board.
Okay, thank you. Anurag, David, your take on the situation?
See, I'm going to be less generous. I agree with all the points, absolutely. We've done a fabulous job getting big-scale enterprises on doing SMS. And everybody in the world knows what SMS is. And they know that it's great for being told one thing. You know, the notifications traffic, the PIN traffic, you know, your balance traffic, your appointment traffic, all of it, it's fabulous because it puts a piece of information in front of you. What I think we've not done as well is to keep up with personal expectations and then being able to drive conversations into businesses, both large-scale enterprises that have the money, have the development teams, have the luxury of getting an app onto your phone if you're a bank. You know, we've done a great job with those kind of companies and then really starting to see the value in messaging. For smaller and medium enterprises, I still think they see value in notifications, and then they start to think, oh, it's complex. I've got email, you know, depending on the size and the outlook of that organization. What I don't think we've done a brilliant job is how well, if you reach out to a customer on the channel they use all the time, or you're there when they need you, how much more value you can have by putting a conversation and giving that customer, empowering that customer to have that conversation the same way they might talk to their friend or the same way they might talk to their partner, because they can do it on their own terms. I mean, there's a fabulous quote from Forrester, which I keep using. It's like, in empowered customers become entitled customers. And I think the last couple of years have really proved how much you can empower a customer to do stuff when they want it remotely, and to do it when they want on one of these things, which we're on all the time. You know, I think the job for us as an industry now is to show SMEs that doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be about driving down to the lowest price and finding the cheapest way to achieve something. It's about finding the right way and the right interface for your business, whatever size it is, to take advantage of the conversations that are out there to be had with your customers. And that means QR codes, it means buttons, it means text messages with links in. You know, I think a cohesive message about value and about being where your customers are. I'm going to claim it. I'm going to put it on the record. I watched Meta's Conversations event. Thought it was brilliant a couple of weeks ago. Zuckerberg definitely stole our line. We at MEF have been talking about being where your customers are for ages. So he's definitely nicked that. But it's absolutely true. When you're on social media and you see an influencer, you want to buy something, I want to go and get that. I'm on there, I see this, I want to tell my partner about it, and then she can talk to them about the business, about going and getting it. All of those things are absolutely true. So we as an industry have to do better at that. It's not notification, it's not low value.
Okay, so out of 10? Out of 10?
And it's really everything you need.
So what did you say out of 10? I think, did you say out of 10?
I didn't give you a score out of 10.
You didn't.
I'm going to say a good, solid, firm in the middle, 4.5.
Wow, excellent. We've got a 9.5 and a 4.5. Yasser, you're over in Miami in the US. You're with Kaleyra. You deal with a lot of enterprises. We'll start off so you don't avoid the question, like our previous speaker perhaps did. Rating out of 10 and then why?
I will go with the diplomatic answer of something in between, around a 6.5, 7. And the reason is this. We collectively as an industry, we look at each other, we say the things that we all understand, but this is why this session is so important. It's not what we understand and what we feel we're taking this forward to. It's about customer engagement at the basis of how companies want to do business. Now, Dave is right. We have email, cost effective. Yes, it doesn't convert in the same way as messaging would, but times are changing. This is now the time of customer engagement. Everybody wants, not just a message saying, okay, here's your one-time password, but it's more about personalization. So we're getting there. We're not there just yet. Enterprises know what they can do, but it's becoming more about what they should be able to do and what more they can do, knowing that 70% of all millennials are now doing more than 6 hours of weekly shopping online. Stats of this kind need to be guiding the SMEs into registering this as a company and say, okay, let's do this. What do we need to do? And I think the question is going to come up as to what we need to be doing to present this more as an up and coming. SMS is old, but as an up and coming newfangled sort of engagement platform. I think that's what David's right about. Yes, Meta can steal some ideas about what we say and what we think already, but he's out there on his social platforms. He has an edge.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Scott, over to you.
Yeah, I think from a scoring perspective, I'm absolutely spot on. I'd say a 6.5, as on the basis I work in a very kind of niche domain, so I work in the fraud protection area. And what I mean by that is I'm a very high user of SMS messaging. I feel sometimes that I'm always on the defence when I speak to potential new clients, smaller banks. So I'm trying to stay to the question, SMEs. But where I like SMS, I still see SMS as king. I think Nick mentioned some statistics right at the start of day one, about 85% read within 3 seconds. Just to put that into some sort of context, I, on a daily basis or weekly basis, fight against smishing, spoofing, SIM swap, takeover, potentially as a 7, rare, but happens. And I'm working through all these problems. The reality of it is, certainly in Europe and even in South Africa, we get response rates on it's an omni-channel, so it's a hybrid SMS and interactive voice working together in tandem. Our average response rates are 67%, 67. Or some of our banks in the UK still get 80% response rates with SMS. Of that 85% response rates, 80% are within the first 30 minutes, and 80% of that is within the first 5 minutes, and 8% of that is with 3 minutes, if you follow me. It's very quick. it's very responsive. I work in a real-time environment. I mentioned before, FICO we cover about 65% globally of the credit cards on a real-time fraud warning system. We run within milliseconds. I think, once again, one of the colleagues mentioned about being at the till, paying for something. Yeah. That's what we do. So we do the triggering alert, as in this is a high-risk transaction, to sending a communication, was this you, yes or no. So that's the sort of volume. It works very, very fast. I've got to make sure that I've got a sender ID registered. I've got to make sure I've either got a long code running on a carousel to avoid spoofing, or I'm on a short code, or I'm doing a SIM swap check real time from an API, or I'm doing a line busy check API. So I've got all that running in the background, and that's great for a tier 1 bank, a large bank, but it comes at a cost. The problem I've got with SMEs and bringing these guys into the market is when I speak to some of the use cases to say, you do realise we can digitalise that whole process, take out 50% of your call centre. Oh yeah, but it's quite costly, it's the cost of that. So that's some of the challenge I've got, and it's interesting if it comes to new opportunities. Absolutely, I'm now moving into a conversational messaging type solution now to digitalise even more use cases. So I give it a 6.5 on the basis of it's ubiquitous, it is great, but a lot of my clients at banks, if they can go and push notifications or even WhatsApp, they prefer to do that rather than the costs associated in SMS. But they're juggling three things. One is obviously the cost. The other one is obviously, its performance. How's it going to respond? I need a quick and I need a fast response rate. That's critical in fraud prevention, particularly with push payment fraud. And the last bit, which we talk about all the time here, is trust. They need to have trust in the channel. And so my challenges are commercials. It's going to cost me a lot if I get into conversational SMS. But some of even the basics, the smaller banks it'll cost me a lot to get up and going. And then the cost is, I need to protect the channel. Yeah. So that's quite a few of the constraints. So that's probably why I lowered the score a little bit.
No problem. Thank you very much. Very comprehensive. And Carlos?
Well, from 1 to 10, I think for me it's 2. It's quite awful towards SMEs. Why? Because basically I really believe, and it's only me, that the SMEs is one of the things that most of the service providers we don't look at precisely. The main target for big technologies and big developments are more the enterprises, first of all. Well, we all know why. But when it comes to SMEs, the picture is totally different, completely different. That's probably why many of us in the industry, we don't target those. It requires a lot of personalization, as you said. It requires a complete different experience. It requires that the SME can have accessibility to tools, software, as easy as they go to a Google Drive, or they can use their WhatsApp, or they can use their Dropbox, or all the tools that they have on their smartphones or applications. The business messaging should work like that. It should be as easy as possible, offering them the best CX experience so they can get attracted to use this application tool environment where they can expose themselves to other channels than pure OTTs. Because of course they know many channels, right? And the cheapest one, maybe not the most effective one, email, but it's still one of the most used communication mechanisms, and we come here, everybody,
it's the most used, Carlos. We've seen it.
Saying that we want SMEs to use SMS, omni-channel tools, but they still use email. And the fact that they don't have access to tools that can let them at their level, with the right pricing model, with the right environment and accessibility, commercially and technically speaking, it means that they keep using the email, and they will keep using the email. Because as an external factor, there is education and use case. It's how do I get to know that this thing exists the level.
We'll come back to that. It goes back to, we'll come back to that a bit
All right.
later because of what Scott mentioned. Some great examples. He's been using it himself. He worked for NatWest. He's seen it from the inside. Now, on the other side of things, knows all the stats, knows how great it is, but still having difficulty getting out to the smaller ones. So we'll come back to that. Anurag, if you disconnect yourself, so Tanla, you've got this fabulous omni-channel solution called Wisely. Great. Should we disconnect that? How does, you walk onto the streets of Mumbai. I had the pleasure of meeting you at an event, our business messaging meetup event, and 100 other people from the business messaging industry in India. But let's say you walk onto the streets of Mumbai, we walk into a shop, we're talking to the shop owner there, and they may not even be using email there. A lot of people I know in India on a daily basis use WhatsApp, the free version of that, for their business messaging. How do we start getting the message across to those types of businesses that actually business messaging is where they need to be? It's a good idea to start using SMS because of this. And actually, this is how you do it. You go to this email address, and you need to do this and that and actually hook up to it. So there's a disconnect, surely, between having a wonderful solution like you have and actually getting people to use it, people who don't know what on earth an API is, who have problem understanding what a mouse is. They think it's a little rodent that scurries around, and actually getting them using business messaging. What do we do? That's the big thing. That surely is the half you're missing from your 9.5.
So I'd be surprised if today also somebody doesn't know what's a mouse. So that's interesting. But it's very interesting, James. You mentioned this, and I have exactly an anecdote about this. Last evening, I was out. We went out with a friend for an ice cream. We went to a very, very local ice cream parlor, nothing very fancy. So that can be as SMEs as an SME can be. In fact, it would be more on the small enterprise, not even a medium enterprise. And their billing machine wasn't working. They took down my mobile number, and they said our system will send out an SMS to you where you can download the invoice in case if you want to. Now, that's the level of digitization which I am seeing out here. Maybe it might be a little more skewed because I feel India, and that's my personal take, it may not even be the exact reflection of the situation, but at least what I believe in India, digitization has taken such a strong foot forward. We launched what we call the UPI, the Unified Payment Interface.
But Anurag, you're reliant on people having access to the internet. And you talk to so many people in the world. In fact, we've had a couple of people who are meant to be speaking on sessions during this event in so-called developed countries. The internet provision fails. They weren't able to join us. So you're assuming everyone's got access to the internet, but you know in India how big it is and how many people don't actually have access and are yet to be connected. So,
right. So I guess access to technology and knowledge about technology might be slightly different aspects. Or let's put it this way: is availability of technology and like 100% uptime of that technology might be a little bit of a different aspect. What I'm talking about is firstly, at least the availability of such technologies and adoption of those technologies. How effectively are you able to access those technologies 100% 24/7? Yes, that can be another debate that, you've laid a fiber cable network, but how effective is that fiber cable network and how much is the uptime? There are two different debates, I believe. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, coming back to what you were saying, I agree. Yes, there is definitely a lot more that can be done around this. Coming back to your earlier question, which you started off with, that how can you enable people? Yes, excuse me, there are still mom and pop stores. There are still a number of outlets which may not be that technologically savvy. I was reading a bit about this online also prior to this discussion today. What it turns out is that one needs to ensure that there is ease of access and a very no-code or in fact, not even no-code, it has to be like a no-code environment where an enterprise, a small enterprise, can easily latch onto the bandwagon of CPaaS. What is required to make that available? I feel there are two aspects. One is an aspect which is a slightly more human aspect, which is to do with our outlook and our approach to this industry. Yes, we are far more used to the large volume, large players, and if you look into India also, we might be more keen to cater to an Uber as compared to a local taxi vendor, for example, right? So the local taxi vendor would be the equivalent of an SME out here. So I think from that perspective, I think that's more a matter of education and growing awareness within us. I mean, that onus eventually lies on us of building that next tier of
and thank you, Anurag. I'm going to actually ask David exactly that. The owner, Cisco, you are a global brand name. Anything with IT, any company kind of knows you somewhere in that mix there. Surely, with your global position, I appreciate that the messaging component within Cisco is rather small compared with the rest of it. But with that global position and your brand name, what can companies like yourselves do to make access to business messaging super easy for the average person on the street, wherever they might be around the world? Because surely you've got that technology, you've got that amazing platform. And do you do anything like that today, actually? Could a small company that knows nothing about APIs actually connect up to your solution?
Yes, it's the simple answer.
Okay.
And it's about making it as ubiquitous and easy to use that anybody can jump on. You do need to be online. It's the only thing that you have to
So can you
have.
just take me through the process? So I'm a small business. What do I need to do?
One of the products in our portfolio
Yeah.
right now, if you're on your phones, go Google Text Local. Google it. So it is a subsidiary of Tesco, used to be owned by IMI. Obviously, IMI is now part of Cisco. Text Local operates in several countries around the world, and you can log onto their website. You can be signed up with a credit card in about 5 minutes, and you can be doing outbound marketing and two-way comms with your customers in 10. There are features in there to be able to build online forms, to gather registrations, to send out menus, to trigger QR codes so that you can print them off and stick them in your shop. You can download an app so that you can scan those QR codes, so you can tie the two things together. And we've had that product, I'm going to do them a disservice now because I'll underestimate it, but it's about 10 years. And it has grown from a tiny, someone saw this niche, all that back and went, well, actually, dentists need to be able to send you reminders too, as well as your bank. But they don't know what an API is. They're never going to build it. Text Local's got more than 100,000 businesses on it. That approach, that freedom of availability, they've added more and more features as it's gone. I mean, definitely go check them out. I think it's fabulous. There are other players out there, but Text Local is best.
There
But with the Cisco investment in CPaaS and our absolute focus on omnichannel and customer experience, where Text Local is evolving to now, that they will see a major relaunch later this year, which will include richer channels. And it's the same approach to the customer interface that a dentist will be able to log on and be able to communicate with all of their customers that they've got to opt-ins for. So all GDPR compliant, we take care of everything underneath in terms of security, registering sender IDs, developing numbers, all that sort of thing that we talk about all the time and find complicated. It's all done for them. And that product is going to continue to evolve.
So it's clearly awareness.
It's exactly what we need to reach the next 100 million, is they have to be able to do it.
Now, it's about awareness. Now, Yasser, you've lived in different countries throughout your life, I know, but you're in the US now, and the US messaging market, first of all, it's huge. But secondly, if you look at the traffic and the channels used over there, SMS is still vast because the commercial model for SMS has been, historically, I'm aware, let's say the commercial model, the price has increased rather a lot lately, but generally it's been reasonable, and therefore most businesses have not needed to look elsewhere, for example, to the likes of WhatsApp Business Messenger so much. So therefore the penetration of that compared to the size of the country is quite small. And going further forward as well, I'm constantly astounded at how many business messaging companies there are in the US at scale, so with several hundred employees, and I've never heard of them. And I've been in the industry a long time, and most of the people in this room and online will never have heard of hundreds of business messaging companies in the US. What you seem to be doing rather well, and we've talked about this, is the outreach side of things. So what are the business messaging companies in the US doing to actually go out into the communities, into the states, the local counties, and actually talk to people, and to use that very American phrase, the mom and pop businesses, to actually get them into business messaging? What are they doing right in the US that could be done elsewhere?
Oh, that's a difficult question. So comparison-wise, we are luckier in the US now compared to let's say developing countries, where the adoption is not as high as it is in the US. One thing I think the companies here in the US are doing right, it's not that they know how to do it. It is that they're trying to be as out there as possible. A lot of social media promotes the new fad as it is today, as it is tomorrow, where you need to be, how you need to think. If I could say it that way, there's a lot of molding of expectations. The millennials, they want everything now, today, as we speak. So once that happens, then the expectation sort of elevates everybody to, get their name out there. Email is there, obviously. That's being used nonstop as a tool. But using email and then continuing and elevating the email to business messaging, rich messaging. Again, you mentioned WhatsApp as well. WhatsApp isn't as popular in the US because we have alternatives like the iMessage, and Apple is a very dominant figure in this market. So the Googles and the WhatsApps and the iMessages, they're not really in it together just yet. And this is where Europe is trying to be the broker and say, okay, you know what, you three, you come sit down and get this ecosystem working. So things are actually working in the right direction.
Okay.
When that sort of brings the US market into a single ecosystem, I cannot hesitate to anticipate at all. But Europe and their simplistic, okay, I want one single charger, I want one single ecosystem, that's actually going to be helpful. It's going to be painful for the technology companies, but it's not about the companies. It's about the end customers.
It is. No, thank you, Yasser. Scott, believe it or not, we're close to the close already. We really need an hour and 45 for this one. I know. Shocking how time flies when we're all having fun. Scott, you've got a huge amount of knowledge yourself about omni-channel solutions, what omni-channel really means. How do we, when we're talking to businesses out there, smaller ones, again, this is the focus of this panel, the smaller ones in particular, how do we make sure that we don't just fry their brains with going, hey, we've got RCS, and they go, what's that? We've got chat apps. They'll understand the chat app side of things more likely. We've got SMS, you've got email, you've got push messaging, you've got voice, you've got so many other channels, all the channels we've seen throughout this 2-day event that make up omni-channel. How do we make it that they don't just get, let's say, word salad blind and go, I'll just carry on doing what I always do and use email?
Yeah, I think the most appropriate way to deal with this is really just to try and keep it really, really simple and basic. I mean, when I speak to new clients at all levels, for me, it's like, what is the problem that you're trying to resolve? What's the objective? And 9 times out of 10 is, I need to reach out, I need to improve my customer experience, or I need to digitalize my processes. I need to make it, more cost effective. And it's all about the performance of the channels. Then comes the commercial aspects. So for me, it's just try and keep it really simple. I am like a retail banker. I've worked in fraud for 18 years in the banks. I've been new into this industry, although I used the omnichannel since 2017. I used this omnichannel type solution. But it's an incredibly complex business, and the last thing you want to try and do is make that complex business in front of a prospective client. Keep it really simple, make the pricing really transparent, but really, for me, it's all about the performance and the results. What is it you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve it? I suppose I'm a little bit different about emails. Emails add little value for me. It's probably the most unresponsive. I'm sure it's got its part. My clients use it mainly for marketing and for education, particularly of scams and awareness. It's got a reasonable level of response rate to that. But I don't know about you guys, but I've got 2,000 unread emails sitting in my phone just now, and that says it all. So I think
two are from me.
Yeah, two for you.
Yeah.
But to sum it
About
up, I
digital
think it's
transformation,
keep it really, really simple. Keep it really transparent. And I think another aspect I really liked about you talking about your solution there, from the IMI, make it really simple, easy. Onboarding process is straightforward and simple and fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Carlos, but the fact that this gentleman is standing on stage means we have some questions from the online audience, so we'll keep it really quick.
Yeah.
But Carlos, just come back to you, Ross.
Sorry, Anurag, here, just 1 sec. I actually have a flight to catch, so
Go on.
I'll bow out, but all the best to the rest and look forward to catching
Thank you. Thank you, Anurag. Safe travels. Bye. All the best. Bye. Bye. Carlos, closing remarks on this. What do we need to do to really get it out there? So David talked about one of the companies within the Cisco brand family in the UK and other countries, really has easy access, but how many people have actually heard of that company? How do we get that awareness out there?
Yeah, I really believe that technology probably is there, and it must be there because we are all service providers or technology providers. But my point is the accessibility to that technology. And when we are talking about accessibility, I'm referring to SMEs of 1 to 2 employees.
Micro businesses.
Yes, I'm talking about that.
The
People that
majority.
they don't have
That's
the
the
time
absolute
to
majority.
even send an pure email campaign to
Yeah.
their small CRM system. So it really comes from how the customer experience is as simple as possible, as you mentioned, as simple as possible, and what are the most simple, the simplest way of using all these channels available as well, right? Because with all these channels, more channels and more channels, is even more complex to manage all of them together to reach out the end goal, which is communicate with your customer, right?
Exactly.
The SME of 1 to 2 people, they only
David,
want
what were you saying?
to,
You're on mute.
I was just saying that Carlos is bang on, because that's all it's about.
Perfect.
What is the simplest
Perfect.
way
Look, and
to have a conversation with your customer?
we may have multi-channel, omni-channel, anything, but just start using something. Just
Yeah.
start using something and roll with it. At least you go with it.
Exactly.
Beyond just email. Just start small and go big.
Start small, use 1, 2 channels properly,
then
and the
see.
customer sees the results.
Yeah.
And then we'll move to more complex
Perfect.
tools.
Okay,
Right?
I appreciate we're going over a few minutes, but it is my next session, so just you two speakers, you can wait. I know you two well enough. You can definitely wait. If we'll just go another 5 or 6 minutes, if needs be, because of the questions.
Yeah, we got a question and a comment, so
Yes.
we can fly through this. So the question is, what do you think of Google's effort until now for RCS business messaging and its impact on RCS business messaging market, both for the enterprise and the telco operators?
I think I know who would ask for this, but anyone want to take this? Okay. I was going to say David Creasey-Benjamin,
on that landmine.
Cisco.
Why not?
Go for it.
Are they in the room? I can't see.
So who are you asking for?
Google. Are they there? No.
No,
So-
they might be online.
I think
That's allowed.
Some stuff they have done fabulously, and they have done really well to sort of start getting mobile networks to adopt the standard that they all agreed on. And I think they do some fabulous things. What I would adore them to do, though, is to go above the line. I sat in a room with a group of people on Friday talking about a new RCS campaign, and the results are spectacular. 41% increases in people willing to pay, that kind of thing. But I asked everybody in the room, who's got an Android? Hands up. You heard of RCS? Blank faces across the board. I said, have you heard of chat? And they went, oh yeah, that's in the messaging inbox, right? If we're going to get the message out to businesses, and I think this is where Google really could take the charge and could do the sort of context that WhatsApp and people do, is to give RCS a personality and to give it a presence in the world that people know that they've got it. They know it's a business destined channel, just like SMS, because that's what we think of that inbox now. I think that's the thing they've not done. Technologically, the way they deal with mobile networks, there's lots of stuff to talk about.
Thank you.
But they could go above the line.
Thank you, David. Anyone else got anything extra to say?
I mean,
Scott?
I've got a view on it. From a kind of fraud prevention type communication, I think it looks great, as in it's got the blue tick. It feels more secure than SMS, I'm sure. It's got more, importantly, where we're going as a business, it's got more real estate. The sort of communications that I get involved in a lot was this transaction yours, yes or no, OTPs? That's no longer good anymore. We know it's a customer, but we don't know if the money's for the customer. We now need to get into conversational dialogue to say, have you had an urgent request? Has somebody changed the sort code?
Yeah.
You know, is it a scam? You know, and I think RCS plays well into that. The problem I've got is, I say, was it UK 40% Apple, 38%, whatever? You know, it's a percentage of a percentage. It's not ready for me yet, although I think I can send an RCS in default to SMS.
The UK operators have done a good job at standardising. Just that onboarding form with RCS was
And the
different
commercial
across the
model.
4 operators. At least that's now been standardised. So it will get easier, and the onboarding for businesses will be
so
faster.
I don't think it's ready yet for a lot of my clients, but it feels like a really good solution, and I have seen some of these results as well.
Thank you. Ross, questions?
Yeah, another question just came in. Would you say that RCS is not for USA, as the majority of people use Apple devices?
David's talking to himself. Yeah.
I am. I was just going to say, again, so when I talk to my Cisco colleagues across the pond, and I think Nick, if he stands up, will shout out the actual percentage. I think it's still 50-50 in the US. And there's no viable rich messaging alternative for outbound. When you're doing A2P messaging, RCS is still going to be, and it should be, king in the US. Apple, they're going to do what they're going to do, and I think they probably will release an A2P flavour of something for us all to really get our teeth into. But no, I think RCS is just as suitable for the US market. Verizon are going big with it.
It's amazing. People love RCS, clearly, don't they? This wasn't an RCS panel. This is an extra insert. If you're here expecting commercial models, sorry, we've got an RCS panel going on here. Carry on. Ross, we don't need to have RCS World in Dublin now. That's cancelled. Next.
Yes, we do. I'm going to that.
We've got someone from Dublin here. We've got someone else from Dublin here.
Yeah.
That's done. Yeah.
So this one is a comment, but feel free to respond. They said, I suspect from asking, say, 10 local small businesses that the smaller end of SMEs use Instagram for business. That's the long tail, however. So the middle 100 million enterprises still remain unserved. So
That's an observation.
yeah, it's an observation. I don't know.
It's
if everyone's
100% correct, and that's exactly what this panel is about. It's exactly what solutions like David's talking about, exactly what Scott's talking about. It's about making that technology that's been available and created by some amazing corporations accessible to smaller ones.
Yeah, and for connected and unconnected businesses. I mean, we are probably here for developing countries.
And we are here actually on our next panel. It introduces it nicely into the next panel. We've got some great representation from across of Africa on that panel, and unconnected. So where there's no internet, there's no nothing. And one of the speakers is from Gambia, where the internet penetration is less than a third.
Exactly.
And even that third isn't reliable because there's so many power cuts. Hopefully not one right now. We're going to find out.
But they still need communication towards the customers.
100%. 100%. So, Ross, thank you very much for fielding the questions. I'd like to thank my speakers. Anurag had to duck out because he's on his travels. So thanks to Anurag from Tanla. Always a pleasure, Yasser, seeing you from Kaleyra. David Creasey-Benjamin from Cisco, sorry. Old habits die hard, not IMI Mobile. Yourself, Carlos, from Enable. Scott, pleasure having you. Great that we could introduce FICO to more people in our audience as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.